Hello and welcome to the Great Women in Compliance podcast. I am Sarah Hadden, and with me today is Nicole Rose. Nicole is a dual qualified lawyer, UK and Australia, with more than 20 years of global experience in compliance spanning mining, finance, tech, government, and nonprofits. Nicole has led compliance transformations at companies like Microsoft, LinkedIn, Rolls-Royce, and many others. And as the creator of the Frame Training Method, Nicole helps leaders move beyond awareness to real behavioral change. Today, we'll be talking about her career, her methods, and especially an upcoming book titled Told: How In-House Legal and Compliance Professionals Secure Airtime, Gain Traction, and Transform Organizations. Nicole Rose, welcome.
Oh, Sarah, lovely to be on the podcast. Thanks so much for inviting me.
We're so glad that you're here today. And we are noticing, I must say, that Nicole Rose, you are everywhere these days. Podcasts, events, and now you have this new book coming out. Tell me, are you exhausted or exhilarated by
Oh
all
my
of
gosh, what a great
our
question. Hey, listen, I really feed off sharing. I love sharing. I think that we are part of the most incredible community. And I think that when we work with other people, we share our ideas, we get feedback, we're part of something bigger. Firstly, we enjoy our work more. And secondly, we're improving this community. And let's not forget that compliance, I believe, is one of the most necessary and useful professions. Like,
You truly love it, don't
I absolutely do. If you get me on stage, and I will persuade anybody why we should all love compliance.
you? So maybe you should be in sales rather than compliance.
Ah, I am. We are all in sales. That's exactly what we do. Like, we should be spending our time thinking about the customer experience. And that is what I talk a lot about, and that's what I do in my work.
But why compliance? So I know that you are a lawyer. You could have gone
Yeah.
down many paths with that, been a litigator, any number of things. What led you to compliance? And tell me how you fell in love with it.
Oh, wow, what a great question. I was an inspector. I was also an artist. I was many things before I moved into compliance. So
An
my
artist
story
first?
started an artist first. I studied law. I wanted to study arts. I went on to do law. But I always say I was born with a pen in my hand. And I tell a fun and true story. I was at my first law firm doing my training contract in London, Cameron McKenna. And I was there in a very important meeting. So I was very young. I think I was 21, early 20s. And I was on the top floor of this amazing law firm. And I don't know whether you remember LA Law.
Oh,
I
sure.
grew up with LA Law. Oh my gosh. And so I kind of felt as an LA Law, I had all this, the fruit baskets, all the partners. Everyone was super, super, super important. The clients were there.
Mm.
And my job was to take notes. So I was sitting there furiously taking notes, except this is what happens there. I sat down, I looked back on my notes, and what was I doing? I was drawing the client.
Oh no,
Kid you not. I
you were
didn't even
doodling.
realize I was drawing the client. I was doodling. I was drawing the
That's how your
client.
brain
And I
was
was doing,
working.
it's
Yeah.
how my brain was working. And then I was like, I have to stop this because this is not LA Law. This is not gonna pass. How do I continue doing this? So I did do my 2-year training contract at Cameron McKenna. I put my pen down and I did construction and building and insurance and stuff that didn't really float my boat. And I qualified as a lawyer, and I actually moved into a world that did float my boat, and that was employment law. Hey, employment law,
Mm.
it's a world of real emotions. People have real problems. Organizations have real problems. And you're dealing with people, not a building, not a road. It really resonated with me. And I did that for a number of years. And then I moved in-house. And I moved in-house to a large insurance firm. And I was asked one day to investigate an employee who was leaving. And the company believed that he was leaving, going to take the clients, going to take
Taking things with him. Sure.
taking everything with him,
Yeah.
protecting assets. So I looked into him, and I can't remember how I managed to do this, but I do remember he had a company phone. I managed to get into his text messages, his emails, etc., etc. And it ended up that I uncovered something that the FSA, as it then was, then uncovered, and the DOJ uncovered, and lots of people uncovered the first FSA case into an insurance company. In fact, I think it was the first bribery and corruption case in the UK at the time. And at the time, I knew it was big, I knew it was serious. But here's the other thing I knew. I could not work. I was very naive. I was like, I don't understand. This person, he got no money. He got no extra commission. He was doing his job, yeah, yet he was actually doing something that was unlawful. Yet there's a company policy in place and there's training. I don't understand why he would
Yeah,
have
what's
done
the
this.
motivation?
Well, this is what people, and this is what I learned, and this is why I moved to compliance. I was like, look, it's not working. We've done training, tick, didn't work. We've got a policy in place, tick, didn't work. He actually didn't make money out of this. Okay. He was following a group dynamic. He was following a culture, what he knew. Yeah.
Culture. Yeah.
So it was a culture. This is what people did. The bigger the bribe, the better the broker. Like that was literally what I was told. So that was the culture that he was in. And when you have somebody that you are seeing somebody that's potentially going to go to prison, and they are, to all intents and purposes, just following an organizational norm or even an industry norm, that got me really interested. Maybe at the time I was very attached to the company and I really wanted it all to go well, but it also got me really interested in behavior science and why good people, normal people, do silly and bad things. And
So
so
the
that
human
really
side of
moved
it,
me.
that really
The
resonated with you.
human side of it. It was kind of one on from employment law. Employment law was more individual cases, and this was like, hey, 1 second, let's take this to the next level. How can we actually make a difference?
So was it right at that point in your career as you entered compliance that you really started looking at the human side and bringing in psychology and human behavior and various kinds of research? Or did you just sort of start out generally making your way in compliance in a
Yeah,
more
well,
conventional
as it
manner?
happens, what happened was it was originally quite conventional because I started to learn about compliance. I was involved in investigation, working and just involved in understanding how the regulators work, what they wanted, what the framework looked like, all of these different things, what a working group looked like, what triaging was, all of these things that were very new concepts to me
They were new
within
to
an
you.
organization. They were new to me, and I got very involved in a very large case. And so at that point, I felt like I was getting a bit burnt out. So after a few years of doing that, I said to my company, I said, look, I think I need some time off. And so I went on a secondment, they gave me some time off, and I went to Italy and I tried to learn Italian very badly.
Was this like a whole
But I
eat,
did
pray, love type of
this
thing
was
where you sort of dropped
it was
out?
a little bit of it was a little bit of eats, not that much pray, but it was, and love came later. But so what I ended up doing was going to Italy, and I did flunk out of Università de Perugia, and I lived by myself there. I met friends. I started to learn how to converse, and I realized that for me, I think I started to think about learning and how our brains work. And I
Mhm.
was like, look, training, learning how our brains work, and started to get very involved in that. Now, the company I was working for said, great, we'd now like you to go and work in Chicago. They offered me a massive job. And I said, you know what, I think my life will be better if I don't do that. So I turned down the job and decided to set up on my own. And I went to Australia for 2 weeks. And when I went to Australia for 2 weeks, I think that's when I fell in love, not with a person, but just with a different way of being.
And leading
So
with yourself and your needs and your heart and what you wanted.
that's it exactly. And
You're an
suddenly,
entrepreneur at heart, aren't you?
I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I was also an artist. And I just breathed for a while. It's the first time I think I looked up in 4 years and I breathed. And I was only doing stuff for me. And I thought, this is kind of wonderful. What would I do if I didn't have any responsibilities?
Yeah,
And I
you can get
decided
hooked
that
on that. I get it. I hear you. You cannot put this personality type in a box. You're
no,
not going to
well,
be happy if you're working, excuse me for putting it this way, but working for the man. You
yeah,
need to be driving your own bus.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I felt. And this is how the story went. This is how I tell the story, but it's all true. So I went to Australia. I lived in a place called Melbourne. And I swapped my convertible car for the ultimate convertible, which is my two-wheel bicycle which is not motorized, which I still have 15 years later today. I swapped my legal career for an art course. I enrolled in a diploma of fine art. And I took off my heels, I started wearing trainers, and I started to live and think differently. And I went and I did art. Now, what happened then, Sarah, was very interesting. I had a great friend who was in my art course with me, who was also an adult student. And she said, Nicole, in life, we need to do what we're good at. Like, art is fun, yes, but you're never going to make money. What are you going to do with your life?
Okay, this is your sensible
Um,
friend.
this is my sensible, very pragmatic friend. And she had skills different to me. And she said, you're very lucky for what you have. You've got this background and career. And at the same time that she was talking to me about this, Rio Tinto came along. A very good friend of mine who I'd worked with in my previous company had spoken to Rio Tinto about me because they'd had a couple of people who had left in the compliance team in global compliance. And they had a big hole and they needed somebody who was a safe pair of hands.
Okay.
So the then global head of compliance came to me. We had a meeting and he said, look, can you help us out? And I said, I can, but just to let you know, I'm an art student. So he said, that's okay. You can do that. Come and work for
It's
me
okay.
part-time.
We
And
allow that.
that's okay. 15 years ago, they were more lax. So I ended up, I guess I ended up consulting for them. And they said, after a very short period of time, they said, look, we'd love to employ you. And then I said, I don't really want to be employed, but here's the things I would love to do with you. I've started doing art. I love art. I love digital design. I started building for them, just myself, some really short animations because I was asked to do something with the training. Didn't think the training was very good. It wasn't. And I said, oh, hey, here's a little animation. They ended up loving it. So what ended up happening was that they were my first client. They gave me the gig ultimately for 60,000 employees around the world to train them. So
Oh,
over time, I ended up becoming, I guess, transforming their compliance training in all the countries, all the languages. I went around the world for them. I trained people. I introduced micro learning to them. I started running workshops, loads of workshops.
this
I
came
started
right at the
learning.
intersection of all of your talents, didn't
It
it?
did. It was amazing. It was exactly, it was, I could put art together,
Hmm.
performing, presenting, people. And this is where I really learn about human behavior. Like when you go around the world and you're training people face to face and you're hearing the stories of people. So not only was I doing the online training, I was actually hearing people's stories up close. And people would say to me, and I'd say, hey, what does integrity mean to you? And I would expect the words, oh, we're doing the right thing, link it to our values, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Never walking past, etc., etc. That's not what I heard. What I heard was feeding my family, respecting my elders, helping my family. Yeah. And
So mind blown. You were approaching it in a conventional way. Let's talk about
yeah,
integrity, but the meaning of that word was completely different for them because of
it
what, their life experiences?
their culture. So these
Okay.
people came from a different culture. These weren't, so these people's culture was really about protecting their community. Yeah. So what I realized quite quickly was that the definition that a organization had of integrity and our values was actually very different to the definition that some employees might have. And
Did
that's
you
where
have
the
to
disconnect
pivot your
lies.
training like right in
I
that
did.
moment?
In that moment, I changed everything. So I scrapped the training, I got the whiteboard out, and we started. And they were, by the way, these guys did not speak English, so I had a translator.
Oh
So we
my.
started drawing on the whiteboard. We started coming up with scenarios, and we started talking. So what I changed the training was I really started looking at integrity from their perspective. So I took out the word compliance to look at integrity from their perspective and started to workshop with them about the scenarios that come up in their lives and how that connects with the organization and the world that they worked in. To the point that by the end of, I think we had 2 days together, which was wonderful. And they all got their aha moments, yeah. But
Sure.
to the point that they then came up with ways that they can say no to bribery and corruption and financial crime. What could they do that sat well with them? And really understanding the human dynamic of everybody comes at things from their own perspective, their own experiences, their own thoughts. And how can we really bring that into our communication, our training, our programs, our initiatives, our frameworks? If that's not part of our framework, it is never going to work.
It won't work. It's so
Yeah.
interesting how just something like that word, turning that word on its head, focusing on that word, opened up this whole new world, this whole new
Yeah.
way of looking at what you were trying to communicate with them. I've noticed in your work, because of course I've stalked you online a bit and read you and listened to you on other podcasts and that sort of thing. And there's one thing that jumped out that I'd love for you to share with our listeners, and that is Moneyball Compliance
Ah, yeah.
because that's a great example of a hook
Yeah.
finding something that will really resonate with the people that you're trying to communicate with. Tell us about Moneyball Compliance as an
Oh, I
example of
love
a hook.
Moneyball. I love Moneyball
I
Compliance.
do
So
too.
Moneyball, I love the film, but the Moneyball Compliance, I guess the concept came to me because as well as a lover of culture and people and behavior insights, I'm also a lover of the detail. And one of the things that I was very drawn to thinking about is when I looked at the how the DOJ evaluation of corporate compliance programs guidance would evolve over the years, I realized it had gone very much to a prove it. Is it working in practice? Prove it, show us. Yeah. And so I really wanted to understand with the organizations I'm working in, I'm building programs for them. I wanted to stop giving the board the usual metrics. Metrics
Mhm.
on how many people did their training? Oh, 90% of people did training. Great. Okay, how many people disclose conflicts or benefits? And my question was, what difference does that make? Like, how do we know that the program is actually working? So I started to really dive into this and look into what we could do that would use behavior insights, what we know about the brain and how it works, and also thinking about how we actually report something that's meaningful. And at the same time, I've been working on the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child abuse. I've been working on the Banking Royal Commission, the Disability and Aged Care Royal Commission, and all of them came back with system failures. The culture was not right. The right information were not getting to the right people. So I kind of looked at all of these, looked at the guidance that we needed to follow with the DOJ, which is kind of where my work was laying, and so to think, how do we prove it? What do we need from our people? And I love this whole idea of moneyballing. Moneyballing is all about, and I don't, just for those who don't know the film, it was the first time in baseball that instead of buying the most expensive players, because we didn't have money, he didn't have, by the way, the role was played by Brad Pitt, one of my favorite actors. So Brad came along, he didn't have any money. He had maybe a couple of million, everyone else had hundreds of million. Okay. So he had a
Right.
terrible team. So instead of looking at the team from the perspective of how much money can we buy, he started to look at players who could do one thing really well. So, okay, that guy can catch. That's all we need him to do. Just need him to catch. That guy can run, like he can run like anything. That guy there can, so whatever it is in baseball. So he started to work out not who the most expensive players were, but who the kind of the players the misfit players, the players
Mm.
that people weren't even looking at. Yeah. He started to look at that. And what he did is he took these average, when they were kind of looking, you gave the player the wrong thing to do, they were average. You gave them the right thing to do, they were brilliant. So what he was able to do, he was able to, and this is where it comes into compliance, he could predict the outcome of the game by looking at by looking at the skills of the players.
Okay.
He could predict, he could predict. And I got really interested in, can we predict compliance? Like, why not? How do we predict compliance? So we don't predict compliance by saying we've had 90% completion rate of training. We know that doesn't work. If it worked, then the first case I ever worked on would not have been a case. Yeah. If we worked, then nothing bad would ever happen. Everyone would follow the rules. Our kids would eat their breakfast and lunch and pack their bags, etc. Just because you tell them to do something doesn't mean they do. However, here's the thing. Let's take a whistleblowing hotline and as an example. Yeah. How do you moneyball whistleblower? How do we predict the number of whistleblowing, the number of reports that we might get or disclosures that we might get? Instead of asking people to disclose when something comes up, yeah, why don't we make it a behavior that people practice? Why don't we predict the outcome not by measuring how many people report, by measuring how many people will speak up? How many people will speak up and raise a concern in a meeting in front of other people? How many
Mm.
people will come to the manager and just practice giving feedback? How many times are we asking people to practice giving feedback? Now, the reason this is so important is I ran workshops for a particular bank around Australia, and I would have run about 50 workshops, and every single workshop had the same response. Why don't you speak up? Because I don't believe anything will happen. I don't believe people value my feedback and I'm going to get into trouble. Okay, so why don't we exercise that muscle? Why don't we focus on capturing how many times we ask people to give feedback and we do something with that feedback? Because if you practice that muscle, you get people to start practicing speaking
Right.
up about the small things. Hey, can you go onto this platform and tell me whether it's good or bad? Does it work? Is it functional? I ask people in my organization, hey, can you go onto I've asking people, can you go onto the system where we disclose benefits or conflicts? Can you just go onto it and look, is it functional? Is it working? Like
Take those
what works?
actions.
Yeah, just
Find
take
that
those actions because
number, get on that call, do that. Okay.
exactly.
Yeah.
Now, if we start measuring that, yeah, that's something that we can say it works in practice because people are speaking up routinely. People are going onto the system and checking in. And you know what? No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt about it. We could predict there will be more reports, more disclosures, more interest, more engagement, more trust if you can get people to do the everyday behaviors.
It's a whole new way of looking at it. You just turned it on its head, a whole new way for an organization to look at how
Yep.
they evaluate and strategize and change their
Yeah.
programs.
And I call these, by the way, I call them compliance micro activities. And
Micro.
so in my team, so I ask people, I say, look, hey, if I'm running a workshop, I would like everybody in the workshop, I'm explaining a conflict of interest, we go through it, and I say, hey, you know what I'd like you to do? I'd like you to spend, all of you, this month, to do certain tiny activities. Can you go onto this system and check it out for me? Give me some feedback, have a chat with one of your colleagues about conflict, go and check the policy and go and check the definition, read this infographic. And then all I'd like you to do is on this form, just tell me when you've done it. That's what you've got to do.
That's it.
And you know what I do? I put it on smart sheets. I run a leader, and I assign points depending on what you do, whether it's passive reading or active doing,
Yeah.
and everybody gets a point. And by the way, a bit of bribery and corruption a bit of bribery and practice. If they disclose, they get a lot more points. But fair enough, that happens. But
Works.
here's the point. I've got them thinking about it, even for 1 month. Yeah. I've got them capturing what they're doing. There's behaviors. They always know how to do it. They're going to forever know how to use this system. So they would have watched a little video with me talking about it. They would have watched a how-to thing. They would have seen the infographic. They would have had a chat with a colleague. If everybody in the team, if there's 10 people in the team, if everybody in the team does 1 or 2 things a week, yeah, and captures it, I've got then more certainty. That team, I can then predict this team is going to be more likely to be compliant, yeah, as opposed to a team that's just told, here's a policy, go away and read it. Now, I haven't done a research study on it. I would love to. But if I did a research study, I have no doubt that if I had 5 or 10 teams, the output by the end of the year would be very
Yeah,
different.
you know what you
Yeah.
would get. I love the way you're able to take such a complex, not complicated, but complex system there and innovation and distill it down into a catchphrase,
Yep.
moneyballing compliance, because there are so many other ways that you can apply that to your program. There was one that you had mentioned in another broadcast about looking at your system of controls, your internal controls,
Yep.
and
Yep.
looking at the ones that are just kind of work a day, low tech, low
Yep.
friction, small, simple,
Yep.
but you're
Yep.
getting incredible impact versus
Yep.
maybe some other controls that are bigger and sexier and more expensive that aren't doing as much.
Yep. Exactly. And that's why, and that you picked on such an important point. So when I apply this in an organization, I go to what's the obligation, what's the risk, what are
Mhm.
the controls in place, and then what are the micro activities that stem from these controls, and are people doing anything?
Right.
And that's kind of the flow. That will be the whole methodology or the whole framework. However, if anybody's listening to this and just wants to apply it for their program, because I'm all
Okay.
about sharing, this is
Right.
kind of like key takeaway right now. Just apply it, take one thing, conflicts of interest, benefits, whatever it is, choose one thing, and just think about what do we actually want people to do? Like, what are 3 things, tiny things, you
What
ask
are
them
the
to do?
real actions that I want
Like,
people to
so,
take?
hey, here's one that is great for privacy. Get everyone to get on their phone, look at your apps, and just check one app's privacy. Just double check, have a look. Just go and check and see whether you're happy about what they're doing with your privacy on a phone.
Okay,
Go
so
do
you're
it.
not even talking about, let's talk about our organization and let's talk
Small,
about your
small.
employer's needs. You're making it personal to pick up your phone.
Make it, if you can, make it personal. I'm speaking at a vendor, I'm doing a panel, I'm facilitating a panel on cybersecurity next week, actually, for risky women. And one of the things that we are talking about is cyber. Like it's a great sell. Like cyber is something that we should all learn from when it comes to compliance. Why? Because it's so personal. If I said to you, if protecting the organization, think about protecting yourself.
Right.
Think about what would happen if somebody was to access all of your passwords, all of your data, all of the sensitive information about your family and your children, all of
So
your
you're making
numbers.
it personal. You're
Imagine.
taking the
Yeah.
message and you're making it personal. It seems
That's,
so often that when companies decide, let's innovate, let's try something new and different, it seems like the first thing they deflect to is, let's just make it funny. Let's just add
yeah.
humor. Let's add humor to our
Yeah.
training, humor to our policies somehow. And I wonder if doing that sometimes is misguided. Humor is highly
Yeah.
subjective. What are your thoughts on that? Always defaulting to the idea
Yeah.
of let's make our
Uh,
training funny.
yeah, I have a big view on this actually, is that I think that humor is a wonderful thing to use in conversation. It's a great way to communicate. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it helps release some tension. Yeah.
Yeah, it can break down some
It
barriers.
breaks
Yeah.
down exactly all of that thing. It's a great thing to do. I use it a lot when I present. I try not to use it in the training that I produce.
Okay.
And the reason being is that I use avatars. I want to relate to my people. I don't want to make them into a cartoon, a caricature. Yeah. So even when I have my artists create great animations, and we created one for National Association of Corporate Directors, and we introduced somebody called Jane. And Jane was a board director. And we made Jane as real as possible. We made her with flaws, she had grandchildren, we knew her music, yeah. But
Huh?
we didn't make her funny, we made her real. And I think that in order for people to relate to something, it's going to be real. It's going to be something that they can relate to. Now, I have watched the funny videos on what not to do with cybersecurity, etc.,
Yeah, they're
etc.
out there.
And my thoughts on it is it makes it so much bigger than real life. People go, oh, yeah, but that's not me. That would never happen. I would never do that. That's never going to happen. Yeah. So it doesn't make it as relatable. And I think people can get, like, if you do it once, I think it's fine. But if it's repetitive, my thoughts are that we just kind of dismiss it as it would never happen to me. The Office, I love The Office. I think it is so well written. Yeah. But we have to take it with what it is, with a pinch of salt. And if we take the important, and I do think it's important communication that we hear in our organization, we take that with a pinch of salt, where do we go? And the reason I say that, Sarah, is look, if we take it seriously, if we take human rights seriously, modern slavery seriously, protecting children seriously, bribery and corruption seriously, money laundering, terrorism finance, if we take it serious, yeah, we seriously want people to get the message. Like,
So if
yeah,
you're
and
using
that's
humor,
why
that sends its own message, doesn't it?
I feel like repetitive humor
Yeah.
on an ongoing basis in the online world without pre-framing it and post-framing it properly and properly framing it
Mhm.
can take away the importance of the message. Yes.
Yeah, it can devalue compliance,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
exactly what
Yeah.
we're working against.
Yeah. Listen, I think anything that is samey, too samey, people just get used to it. Go, oh, okay, that's just that thing again. Yeah. One of the things that we need to do is we need to be constantly engaged. We need to engage our people. Yeah, we need to be interested and curious. How do we, it's not that, so the question isn't, do we make something funny or serious or long or short? Is how do we create curiosity in our employee workforce so that they're going to do something about this? They're going to want to ask questions. You know,
Is
what are
curiosity
we?
the key, you think? Because I know that's something that
Yeah,
compliance officers struggle with. We talk about this all the time, is how do
yeah,
we make people care? How do we make people listen to what we're saying and
yeah,
and remembering it? And by asking that question, I think we're kind of getting into the subject matter in your book.
yeah, yeah.
Chapter 2, for instance, just jumps right in and talks about why most compliance messages fail to land.
Yeah, absolutely. So my experience, and I'm going to talk solely from my experience, is that many people are so well-meaning. So they roll out a new training, a new program. I've got a new policy. Okay, we've got training, we roll that out. We've got training, we've got policy, we've got guidance notes. Done.
We have a new album. We're going to take it on tour.
We got it. Let's do it. Let's do it. How do we get people to listen? Like, how do we get people to care? Now, the thing is, most people will go from A to D or A to Z, which is let's give someone information and expect them to do something with it. Let's tell somebody about this, yeah, this new release that we've got, and they're going to buy our album. Like, why would they buy the album? Now, they buy the album because it's meaningful to them. How do we make it meaningful? What does Steve Jobs do? He made the Mac computer go from being something that helps us with our work to something that helps us with our play and our feeling. We feel great. I've got a Mac. I love Macs. I would use Mac as much as possible because you know why? When I use my Mac, I'm a creator. When I use my work computer, I'm a worker. Like, I love creating. Okay, that's how I feel about it. So my concept, and when I share anything with people, is to take them on the learning journey so they're feeling something with it. Their brains can take in the information. They can then they can then go, okay, this is information. 1 second, let's connect it to what I already know. Okay, so here's a memory, because we've all got memories. Like, my mum came from London to Australia and stayed with me 3 weeks, every single day. Oh, that reminds me of what it's like in London. Oh, that reminds me of that restaurant that we used to go to. Everything linked back to London. Like, we're in Australia, you're by the beach. But
If you
her
love London so much,
brain,
why don't you go back there?
yeah, go, exactly. But her brain was linking back because it's what we know. It's not just my mum, we all do it. I'm speaking to you, Sarah, and you're like, okay, let me relate that to what I know. Okay, I get it, I understand. And we're having this conversation where we're allowing each other to build on each other's words, which is phenomenal. But often when we are training somebody or telling them something within a compliance program environment, we're just giving them the information. We're not allowing the words to settle,
And we
like to
forget
make
that.
meaning.
I think that
Yeah,
there's this mindset that if I just explain it to you the right way, you'll
yeah,
get it. And if I
yeah.
explain it to you and you don't get it, I'm going to go away and think and retool and rewrite my materials, and I'll explain it to you again a little bit differently, and then maybe it will land. But it's really more complicated than that, isn't it? It has more to do
It
with how
is
you're receiving it than how I'm transmitting it.
100%. And if we know that, and I'm going to give another quick takeaway for the audience, is if we know that is the case, and it must be the case, not just my mum, it's all of us. If we know that we will relate better if we already know something, yeah, that's the number one tip. Then tell somebody something that they already know. So either tell it to them before you tell them. So I love doing that.
Tell them
So for
something they
example,
already know.
already know. Yeah.
Okay.
So for example, I love films, so I go to this one. The Big Short, Margot Robbie in a bath tells
Yes.
us about subprime mortgages. Before they tell us about subprime mortgages and tell the story, she's sitting in a bath with a glass of champagne with bubbles up to her neck, explaining the definition of subprime mortgage. So when I go into the film, my brain's already there. I know what a subprime mortgage is. And I
That
got a
was
hero
such a
attached
good
to it.
tactic. Yeah.
Best pre-frame ever. Best compliance pre-frame I have ever seen in my entire life. I can't afford Margot Robbie. Most organizations can't, but we
Probably
can
not
use that
appropriate to
technique.
have somebody in a
And
bathtub in the work,
many reasons why. Many
but point
reasons why.
taken. Yeah.
Exactly. So why don't we just market? So that's the first thing. How can we, I call it the pre-frame. How can we tell somebody something so they already know it before we tell it to them? Yeah. So tell
So
someone,
you're
hey,
priming our brains. You're getting us
I'm
ready
priming.
to
I'm
receive.
So you did that beautifully. You said, tell me about moneyballing compliance, moneyballing compliance. So that's a great catchphrase, yeah? Moneyballing compliance. People will remember the word moneyballing compliance. I might turn around and say, I might start with a question is, hands up, how many people don't understand how compliance works in your organization? Now, I want you all to be honest. If anybody doesn't put their hand up, I'm going to be surprised. And everyone's going to remember that, yeah?
Right.
So compliance doesn't work. Okay, great. Now tell me why compliance doesn't work. They're already feeding me, yeah? Nobody listens, there's too much, the policies aren't in one place, la di da, I've got too many systems, yada da 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 da. Yeah? Great. So you've used the word systems, policies, you already know what system isn't working. Oh, that system there, great, you're using that word. I've actually got the audience before we've even started talking to talk about things. So their brains are already ready. Yeah.
I've already gained some trust. It's this woman cares about
I,
my problems
I,
and she
I,
understands me.
yeah, I prime them exactly. I've done a pre-frame. I've got them ready. I've got their brains ready, and they're already. So when I start introducing a topic that relates to what they have already told me about, yeah, their brains are ready to receive it. If I remember, 1 second, I've had an experience of this, and then guess what happens? I say, I'm going to give you a different way of thinking about it. So I tell them the information. Now, what they get to do is they get to hear what I have to say. They're gathered. They've connected it with what they've already known. They already know. And then here's the thing, they then create new meaning. My gosh, if we could do that, can you imagine? When I realized this blew my mind. If I can get somebody to co-create with me, they will create new meaning for themselves about a topic. And that is when they're going to take action. If I ask them to read a policy and take action, if
Eh,
I ask them to tell me, to pre-frame them, to work out why it matters to them, to connect it to what they already know, to create new meaning, then take action, I'm probably going to get a much better response. Yeah. And that's
this
what
is
chapter 2 of
so
my book's all
important.
about.
You break this down in your book so beautifully. You talk about a four-stage learning process, with the
Yeah.
first being gathering, correct?
Yes, correct. That's so we tell the so gathering is listening to this podcast. This podcast is gathering, or reading an article, or watching something on TV, or whatever it is. I'm gathering information.
You're
Yeah, I'm
gathering
gathering,
information.
gather. I'm just taking in. Okay, so that's the first thing that my brain does. Now, I didn't study this. Somebody called Professor James Zoll studied the brain and did it for me, but it makes a lot of sense to me. First thing we do is we gather. Yeah,
We gather. That's the top of the
yeah,
funnel in a way.
yeah,
So
exactly.
then next, what are we doing with that information?
We are then connecting it to what we already know. My mum, this restaurant reminds you of that restaurant in London. Dozens by the beach, but okay, fair enough. But we are connecting to what we already know. And that's so important because when we know, the brains are seeking connection. Yeah.
We do that
We start
naturally, don't
creating
we?
connect.
Okay.
We are 100%, we're always connecting. We're connecting the whole time. It's how we develop. It's why our brains keep on growing and expanding. We already we are taking what we already know. We're always thinking about what we already know. And that is our known as in a thought, or it can be an experience, it can be in our body. If I said the word lemon, you might react in a certain way because you might think, oh, sour. Yeah, your body reacts. Yeah, we're connecting.
So when I'm connecting with you as a listener, I'm invested. I'm
Yeah,
invested in
you
you
are.
as a speaker and wherever you're going to take me next. And so next would be the creating that you mentioned, right? That's the third
Yeah,
step.
so that's the third step. So if we've done our job well enough, if we've given them some information, they then connect it to what they already know, and then they take the new information and what they already know, and they create something. And you know what the great thing is? It's kind of impossible not to, unless we're really not listening. It's impossible not to do something with something. Yeah, we kind of go, okay, what does that mean for me now? How
Is
does
it
that
sort
work
of,
for
I need
me?
to know where to put this? This needs to
Yeah,
be
like how does this
practical.
kind of it so you can't unknow what you've already known. You can't unknow the new information because you've been told it. So now our brains will naturally, because and we're also very efficient and we're a bit lazy. Our brains are lazy. We don't
Don't say.
have unlimited space. So we've got to let's condense and put it together a little bit. Let's make it work. How does this work for me? What does this mean in my life? Now, here's the thing: sales and marketers have used this. So it's timeless. They spend the whole time getting us to connect meaning and create meaning about what that car would mean for us. If you think
Story.
about a car, they give us the information we gather. We then reflect that we know what a car is. A car drives and it does this, it does that. So we have to connect it to what we already know about a car. And then we create meaning. But this car, and I've got my eye on a car right now. You know, I want this people mover. I've got this whole story in my head about my family behaving themselves when they're in the car. I'm just like, I've built up a whole story around this car. Yeah. Because I've created meaning. And because the adverts have done that for me and the YouTube clips have done that for me. Yeah. And my knowledge is now building and building. So now then it goes to the next part. So I've created meaning. Now, the next part, which is the kind of action stage, the doing stage, the great thing is I would prefer that people did stuff immediately. Yeah. So
Okay,
we're
but
buying a car.
realistically,
Here's the thing. If I was going to buy a car, I might not buy the car tomorrow, and I won't, but I might have a phone call. I might go and look online at prices. And that's what we want to encourage people to do. And here's
take
why.
action.
We will forget what we learn unless there's some kind of action or rehearsal. And we know this. There's so much science out there. There's thing called the Ebbinghaus curve, and he worked out doing lots of tests on himself actually, that we will forget roughly what we learned, 90% of it within 1 week.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's kind of demoralizing. Like as someone
yeah.
who puts messaging out into the world, the thought that it will be forgotten that quickly, but it's
It's
the truth. It will
well,
be.
it's the truth if we only put it out once.
Mhm.
If we don't get people, to reflect, we don't get people to create meaning, and we just put it out once and they don't do anything with it, they're going to
Right.
forget it. Like, we are just normal. We are human. Yeah. However much we want to, we will forget that amazing party that we went to and that great conversation that we had. Yeah. Unless that person phones us up and reminds us, hey, do you remember when we had that time and we drank that
As
bottle of,
well they
oh,
should.
that bottle of wine, and then it all comes flooding back. So that's what we want to create within our programs. We want to give them people enough nudges that they do something. Yeah. So here's the thing. The doing isn't a big act. I don't want somebody to go and we don't have to get someone to go and report something.
It
Well, it's
doesn't
something
have to be
small.
dramatic,
Hey,
does it? It can be
hey,
small.
hey, it can be small, it can be this. It could literally be, I want you to write down one thing that you are going to do this month. I want you to have a chat with a coworker about one thing. It could be a very small thing. I want you to go and put on your screensaver these 3 points. I want you to go and highlight this link and put it on, bookmark this link. I want you to go and, hey, here's a great video, and it's only 3 minutes long. Why don't you come watch? It could be a small thing. Doesn't need to be big. But that action, that doing, that's going to cement it more and more in our brains, and we're more likely to do something.
Would you say that in this process, this four-step process that you've outlined,
Yeah.
that the action bit is the one that leaders tend to skip, tend to forget
I
the
think it's
most?
the one that leaders tend to expect. I think they expect a big action at the end. So, hey, policy, gather, told you the information, I want you to go and do. Yeah.
Do this,
And I
get
think
these results is what they're,
exactly,
okay,
exactly. And what I'm
not
saying is,
realistic.
hey, just do something small. I want people to do, I want an action. It doesn't have to be big. It can just be a small action to help people get accustomed to what they need to do. Like I said to you, how about just go onto the system right now. Go onto your tiles, go and click on that system. See whether can you log in. If you can't log in, contact IT and get yourself in by the end of the day. That would take 5 minutes. Go on the system now. Go and check. Oh, you can log in. Fantastic. What does it look like? How many questions are there? 5. Great. I've got them to do something. I've taken everything that they have taken, the information that I provided them, what they already know about it, they've created new meaning, and then they've gone and done one small thing, a micro activity.
And that may
Just
lead to
small.
the next and the next. So
And
you've
that,
taken us through this learning curve or this learning process with the four
yeah,
steps. But you also in your book, in chapter 3, I know that you take leaders through a process that you've trademarked, the framing,
the
the what
frame
is it
training
called?
method.
The
Yeah,
frame training method. That is to
yeah,
pre-frame, reframe, and post-frame. If you would,
yeah,
take our listeners through those three
yeah.
steps.
It's so cool. So the pre-frame you've talked about a little bit, it is a Margot Robbie. Yeah, it's about
Mhm.
getting our learners ready to learn. Tell them what they're going to learn before we tell them. Let them already know something. So we want to give them like advertisers do this the whole time. You know, they are great at telling us. Or even, hey, if you go and listen to the Mel Robbins podcast, yeah, at the beginning of the podcast, she is a genius, didn't she? She will say, today we have got one of the most renowned doctors or whatever in the room with us. They are the leading whatever at Harvard. They teach this, they teach that, credibility done. And they are going to tell you the one thing that's happening in your brain that's stopping you from doing what, yeah? And that thing is called, and she tells you the name, yeah? So you want to pre-frame someone. You want to be entertaining and engaging, pretty short. And if we could do this, hey, we could do this before the training. We could do this before the meeting.
Mhm.
Often, when I run a workshop, I will send out an email saying, hey, just to let you know, I would love all of you, before you come to the workshop, just to think about one time in your life when you've experienced XYZ or seen XYZ, because I'd love you to share at the beginning of the meeting. Now, I've pre-framed them what we're going to be talking about. I've got them ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I've told them what's going to be coming up. Hey, I've got them. So when they
they
get
are
to the
primed,
meeting, they are
primed for
so primed.
success.
They are
Yeah.
pre-framed to go into that meeting and they're ready. Yeah. I'm not seeing them cold. I'm seeing them much warmer.
Mhm.
And you know what? The great thing is, even if not everybody's prepared, some people have. And people follow the group and then they start talking. Yeah. So
Right.
you could do it before the meeting, you can do it. You could do it during the meeting just to let you, as the Mel Robbins, just to let you know today we're going to be talking about. But say it as be engaging, be fun. That is where we can be funny. At the
Absolutely. That's
beginning
the
of
time to do it.
that's the time to be funny, to break down barriers. In one of my workshops, I did talk about why I love compliance, and I was training people to be in the business to do compliance training. Yes, I was doing trainer. And I said, I'm going to tell you a story about why I love compliance. And by the end of it, I defy you not to love compliance. And it became a thing. Oh, Nicole loves compliance. And I'm like, yeah, but you can all find. And we had this whole thing about find your passion and everything else. That's what we need to do. Make it funny. Open up, make it funny, make it relatable, be engaging. Send something on someone beforehand. Pre-frame them. Do not go in there without letting somebody know what they're going to hear about.
Don't go in cold. So after
Don't go in cold.
pre-framing is reframing.
Now, reframe, here's the thing. Now, what I have learned about compliance is that not everybody has the same attitude that I have. They don't come from background, they don't see the same things that I've seen. Therefore, they don't love compliance the way that I do. So they might well be going into a session, even online training or whatever session it is, and they've suddenly got the idea this is going to be a bit of a waste of time. They have to do it. It's an hour of their time or half an hour, 10 minutes, whatever it is. The manager's told them they have to go. We need to get our training rates up, yeah?
We either know that person or we are that person.
Yeah, exactly. So here's the thing. If I go in with that thought process, there's something called a thought ladder. What will happen is my feelings about the training will be, I really can't bother to do this, yeah? And the results I will have will be that I don't take it very seriously. I don't retain any of the information.
Right.
I forget it as soon as I walk out and I've got my hands on it. It was a complete waste of time. So I want to quickly reframe my learners, or it can be learners, it can be people in the room. I want to speak to what might be going on in their head, okay? And I want to reframe that. And here is where curiosity comes in. This is where you were right. Curiosity does play a massive part in this. If I could get people to be slightly curious about what we're going to be talking about today, I'm going to have a lot, their feelings are going to be interest, yeah? They're
Even just a
interested.
little of curiosity, a
I
little bit
just
will
need
drive
them to
that, won't
think.
it?
What,
Mhm.
one second, how, for example, I went the other day to some training on AI, yeah? Now, it was done in a very dry way. But before I went, because I knew that this could be really important to my work, yeah, I was curious enough to ask questions and to make it a lot more engaging for me. I got
That's
a lot out of it.
you, but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
often surely are speaking to people that don't
Yeah.
care. That okay.
Yes. So what we want to do, we really want people, we want to reframe whatever the message is from what they might be thinking. Now, there's a few ways of doing it. In online training, I use avatars who I love. So I will make up an avatar. Usually I'll try to think of, and I did this with Deliveroo actually, and I really worked across their demographic to figure out who would be like the likely person that work in this department, in that department, etc., etc. What's a likely influencer? And we made up some really great characters, but these weren't characters as parodies. These were made up of real people.
Real
Yeah,
people.
real people. And so when I can identify those real people, I can identify the questions they might have. Yeah, I can think and I can turn around and say, look, you're here today and you might well be thinking X. In fact, I've had people tell me prior to this training, I've had people ask me these questions. If that's you, you're perfectly normal. And well done. If anybody here accepts that that's what's happening, well done. Okay. And so I'm going to turn around, I'm going to be completely honest with you. And hey, listen to this one. This session is going to last 1 hour long. And it's 1 hour of your really important time. And I want to
1 hour of your life.
thank you. It's 1 hour of your life. I want to thank you for being here. And here's the thing, I don't want to waste your time. Like, I really don't want to waste your time because you might as well go now. If you need to go now, go. If you're committed to being here, I'm going to ask one thing of you. I'm just going to ask that you ask questions and participate throughout because you're going to feel a lot better about this. It's going to be more interesting. And I want you to be honest with me. I want you to tell me how this relates to your work or if it doesn't relate to your work. Now, what I've done is I have reframed them from being an observer to a participant.
That's
Yeah?
a huge mind
I've made
shift.
them
It
curious too.
really is. Yeah.
So I
Again,
can
you're
do that
invested.
I can do that in online training through the use of characters and avatars. I could do
Mhm.
it in person training. I could do it in a meeting. Hey, this is the compliance part of the meeting. You might think I'm going to give you a lot of data and a lot of metrics. I'm not. Today, we're going to talk about people. Yeah. And I've changed them. In fact, I'm going to tell you a really interesting story. Yeah. I'm changing their thoughts. If I change their thoughts, I change their feelings. If I change their feelings, I change the results.
Then
Yeah.
you can change their behavior. What about the post frame? How do
The
you?
post frame is all to do with, okay, so we know that people's brains will remember what they first learned and what they last learned. Okay, that's how
And not the stuff
that's
in
how
the middle.
we hope, but this is why we break down courses into smaller bite-sized chunks. So what we want people to, and in fact, Sarah, you've done it beautifully because throughout this whole interview, you've done a pre-frame and a post-frame with me. At the end of it, you summarize what I've said and I've given you a key takeaway. Yeah. So you've
I
actually
must have
broken
learned
it
it from
down
your
for
book.
people. I reckon this is just something that you do naturally because you're a great interviewer. But what we want people to do is at the end of either the topic or a segment is to have something to do. So I've given key takeaways throughout this. Hey, write this down. Yeah. Or listen to this bit because this is really important. If I give somebody too much information, they're going to forget the bit in the middle, remember the beginning and remember the end. So we want to do lots of little post frames at the end of a segment or at the end. And that will be to really help people relate it to their world. Two ways. Number one, we give them something to do. Here's some options of how you can use this in your practice right away. Yeah. So if I was giving options to your audience right now, I'd say, if you're doing a training, give everybody a one-pager, key takeaways of 5 things, make it into an infographic, give it to them at the end. Number 2, ask them to think about one thing, how this relates to their lives, and discuss it with a colleague. Yeah. So I'm giving them a reflection and key takeaways. We're asking somebody to do something with them. Does
But
that
it's
make
a
sense?
micro action. It's a tiny commitment. It's
It's
small and
tiny.
it's doable.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
doable. These days when we feel like we're all doing more with less and our schedules are so
yeah.
tight, we just don't have anything else to give, we're fatigued.
Oh,
That's small. You're asking for something small. I wish you would do that now. We're nearing the top of the hour.
yes.
We're
Oh
going
my gosh, I'm
to
going to do
wrap.
that.
So it seems like a
Yeah.
beautiful time for you to ask our listeners to take some small action. What might that be?
So I would like everybody who works in, it could be legal, compliance, risk, whatever area you work in, I'd like to take one challenge that you have, one thing that kind of keeps you awake at night, or doesn't keep you awake at night, but just worries you. You know that you need to report on it. It's not looking great. You haven't done anything on it. People just aren't engaged. Take one thing. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Our programs will always improve when we get other people to do things. So I would like you to take one challenge, identify a tiny behavior that somebody can do. What's the one thing that somebody can do? Maybe 3 things. And start talking about it. Next time you go to a meeting, just say, hey, can everybody go and do this one thing? Open up your phones, go and check your privacy settings. But whatever it is, yeah, one small thing. That's what you need to ask people to do, just one thing.
That
That's the
sounds so
first thing.
doable.
It's
The
so
tiny
doable.
thing that you're asking our listeners to do, the small step, is to think of a small step that someone else can do.
That's it,
I
exactly.
love
And
it.
that small step, use that small step in everything you're talking about. Like for the
Mhm.
next week, put it on your email header, put it at the bottom of your email. Don't forget to do X, yeah? Hey, it's so
Oh, that's the
simple.
perfect place
It's
for it.
a little micro activity. Just take the micro activity and do it.
I'm going to ask our listeners to do 3 things. Your thing, and then also to seek out your book. How can they get your book?
They can go to www.untoldcompliance and they will see sign up for early edition of my book, and they can sign up and they will probably going to get a chapter delivered for them to have a look at.
Outstanding. We'll put that in the show notes. And then the
Thank
third
you.
thing would be I hope that they reach out to you personally and connect with you on LinkedIn and maybe even share what micro action they took as a result of the episode today. Nicole Rose, thank you so much for joining us. This was a wonderful and interesting conversation. I can't wait to read the rest of your book and to be part of one of your upcoming workshops. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much.